Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor and today I'm talking to AutoTrader about, well, many things actually, the upcoming consumer duty deadline, finance, and if there's time, we'll of course get the latest on used EV pricing. Now, joining me from the company is its Director of Automotive Finance, Rachel Jones. Hello, Rachel.
Hi, James.
Thank you so much for joining us, Rachel. Now, plenty to ask you. So let's get stuck in, if I may. I'd like to start with consumer duty deadline, the upcoming deadline. Now, this is probably something that a lot of dealers is at the forefront of their minds. They're thinking a lot about. I'm sure many retailers are aware of the new regulations, but I mean, do you think businesses should be worried if they're not ready yet, or if they don't think it applies to them?
In short, yes, I think they should be worried. The consumer duty consultation started a couple of years ago now, and it's been a year since they published their kind of final rules and guidelines for everyone to adhere to. And this deadline that's coming at the end of July, which is obviously just around the corner now, is that time to adhere to those rules. And the FCA are taking this extremely seriously. So there will be severe implications for those that aren't ready or not adhering. And they have said as well, they're going to act swiftly, which, no one likes the sound of, but essentially that's to launch the consumer duty into life. I think the other thing to note is that this is the start. It's not a tick box process to be live at the start of August with new processes. It is in a sense, but there's an expectation to continuously look at how to create positive consumer outcomes moving forward. Something that stuck in my mind was around how the FCA are kind of challenging retailers, particularly around consumer duty, and they are asking retailers to think if they are putting as much effort, time, resource into preparing their business to deliver positive consumer outcomes as they do to generate sales and revenue. So if that doesn't quite fit in terms of how retailers are thinking at the moment, then I'd absolutely encourage them to reach out for some support and guidance in these last few days.
Well, let's stick to that guidance theme then. I mean, what guidance is out there for retailers who might still be worried? I mean, I know it's been around for we've been talking about it for a couple of years now, but that some dealers might be a little bit slack in actually finding out about it. So what guidance is there? And what guidance is there just to explain how the regulations will affect them?
Yeah, I've actually seen tons of media coverage, definitely in recent months, and there are lots of people actually offering help in the industry, which is brilliant. I love it when everybody comes together to really look at how to best, overcome and kind of prepare for these big changes coming. So there is plenty of support available. I guess from AutoTrader's point of view, we host a lot of training sessions and share insights with retailers on lots of different topics. Obviously, we've got relationships with many retailers, so we've done our own kind of retailer facing webinars. We've partnered with Auxilias, who've helped kind of give some of those overviews in terms of compliance and the legal kind of requirements. And then we also published a guide actually, so if anybody wants that, then feel free to get in touch. It kind of highlights the key things to be thinking about. But I think, to your last question, there's only a few days away. What to do right now? Speak to your lender if you're a retailer. We work with many lenders and they've all got guidelines, checklists, masterclasses, all sorts of activities going on. So I'd certainly point people in the direction of the lenders that they're working with who sit on their panel.
Given the fact that you have millions of car buyers actively looking at finance offers on AutoTrader, do the new regulations affect companies such as you at all, and have you had to make any changes?
Yeah, I mean, so we're FCA authorised in our own right, but we also work with 6,000 retailers who are FCA authorised themselves, and those retailers display finance offers on our platform. So a consumer can come onto AutoTrader, browse for a vehicle, and then start looking at the finance offers and calculate a monthly payment and all that kind of stuff. So really, you could say AutoTrader is, one of those first introductions to car finance for buyers. They come into market, they think about a car, they're interested in, browse for that car, and then start looking at adverts and come across finance. So for us, we think we've got a huge responsibility in ensuring that those offers are presented clearly, products are described very clearly, the choice is offered. There's a huge responsibility from us in that sense, and we don't. We take that very seriously in terms of the scale, as you say. We see 2 million, I think it is a year. We've got about 2 million unique individuals every month interacting with those finance calculators. So it's a huge part of what we do. And we recently launched a online application form, which basically enables consumers to come onto AutoTrader, look at a used car, and essentially apply for finance online on that journey. And we've built and designed that product and kind of consumer journey in the last couple of years. So the benefit for us, to be honest, has been that it's been designed during this whole consultation of Consumer Duty. So we've had that at the forefront of our minds in terms of how it's done. Anyway, the way that things are kind of designed at AutoTrader are always with the consumer at the heart. That's who, at the end of the day, feeds our marketplace. So that's always been kind of a main focus for us. And our product and tech teams work very closely with our compliance and kind of governance tribe, who kind of sit very heavily, particularly from a finance perspective, in terms of how those journeys look, how clear they are, how easy they are to kind of understand different finance jargon and terminology and stuff like that. So yeah, for us, I think there's a responsibility for us as a marketplace in terms of delivering positive consumer outcomes and making sure that we're adhering to that from the consumer journeys. But then also we have relationships with over kind of 40, 50 different lenders in promoting that as well. So we're working very closely with them in ensuring that we kind of have that seamless overall view.
Yeah, I mean, with so much consumer activity on AutoTrader, are you actually witnessing any long-term trends that might be happening?
I think the first one is a question actually we get asked very regularly by lenders, which is, are consumers searching by monthly payment? Do they come into market with a budget in mind and start seeing what vehicle can I get for £300 a month? And from the data we see, actually they don't. They come into market and have a car in mind, a make or a model, perform that search first, and then kind of come across finance and the options to kind of fund that vehicle after. And that hasn't changed in recent times either. With everything going on, it's still car first and then looking at finance after. So that's the first one I think I'd call out. Secondly, we do kind of perform quite a bit of research offsite in terms of consumer behaviour and kind of what's going on in terms of how they shop for vehicles. And we ask quite a lot of questions around what kind of jobs, when you're purchasing a vehicle, do you want to do online and which offline? And so for car finance in particular, in our most recent piece of research, 60% of consumers wanted to browse finance offers online and decide on that finance deal online, and 40% of them want to do that offline. So that's quite interesting in itself in terms of, there's a mix of consumer desires out there in terms of how they want to research finance. Some want to do it online, some want to pick it up with the retailer, but then also some want to start maybe searching for finance options online, have questions, and then kind of seamlessly pick up with the retailer to ask for more help or support. So I think those would be the kind of big two that I'd pull out.
Yeah. I mean, the first one you said there was particularly interesting. Now, that's clearly a long-term trend. What's going on in the short term? I mean, obviously there are concerns around inflation, mortgage rates are rocketing. Is this having an impact on car finance, do you think?
Yes, I think it is for sure. I mean, the FLA reporting declines in finance penetration across new and used vehicles. In terms of what we can see, I mentioned earlier that we're seeing 2 million people come onto the site and interact with the finance calculator every month. That's up around 15% year on year. So more people now than ever before are engaging with finance, looking for finance as a way to help fund their car. And so that's certainly something that seems to be very present at the moment. As well, you know, in terms of finance leads that are kind of sent off to retailers from the AutoTrader platform, we track kind of the detail of those leads. So consumers, what are they putting into them? And on average, they're putting 48 months term as what they're interested in. 10,000 miles a year is their kind of average mileage. And the monthly payment that they put into that is tracking exactly the same as what it was last year and the year before that. So those three metrics, mileage, term, and monthly payment, have actually stayed the same in terms of the leads that we're seeing. What is interesting is the deposit that people are putting down. And at the moment, on average, because consumers are putting 15% deposit down of the vehicle price in these leads. And that is the same as last year, 15%. But what's interesting in the last 12 months is that used car prices have gone up. So actually 15% of that higher price is, you know, they're putting more pound notes, you know, into the deposit. So that's a change, I think. And, you know, you hear a few different viewpoints in terms of why that is. And people have still got a bit of cash, potentially from savings made over COVID. People have got a bit more equity in the vehicle, in their current car that they're kind of taking back. And so that's feeding that kind of higher deposit as well.
Time to get your crystal ball out here, Rachel. I mean, can you see APR rates coming down, and if so, when?
Just looking for my crystal ball. I don't have one to hand. APR rates coming down. I think in the new car market, that is happening. You know, I just saw today another 0% PCP kind of offer from another brand. I've seen Vauxhall, VW. There's quite a few brands out there. Renault, I think, have got some 0% offers. So in the new car world, it feels like there is a trend. Now, we've seen in the last year APR rates increasing on new cars. And they've gone up about 2.5 percentage points on average versus last year. But it feels like as kind of manufacturers, you know, have some more stock coming back, a bit more supply coming into market, there'll be some incentives there for them to take up. On the used car side of things, it's a bit more tricky, you know, and I think, you know, we'd look to the Bank of England interest rates in probably in terms of guidance as to when will interest rates come down. That is going to be a huge part of it, absolutely. But again, it's going to be linked to kind of competitiveness from the different lenders in terms of how much they want to push kind of APR rates. And also in like for used electric vehicles, we're seeing a little bit more incentives put and kind of lower APRs from some brands on electric vehicles as they're starting to kind of come back into market.
Finally, Rachel, I mean, I can't have somebody on from AutoTrader without asking this question. Electric vehicles. I mean, what are you seeing on that front? I mean, are things improving at all, especially in the used market, do you think?
Yeah, I think used EVs, we get asked a lot of questions about EVs at the moment. So this time last year, there were about 5,000 used EV adverts on AutoTrader. There's about 15,000 today. So supply has tripled in market, but at the same time, we are seeing demand increase, which is great. So the leads being submitted to retailers is up well over 80% year on year. So there's a good amount of demand. We've certainly seen prices obviously decrease since the start of the year. And that has created a lot of volatility and caution, I think, in the market, particularly with retailers around stocking used EVs. But for the last 3 months, actually, kind of prices have been fairly stable, actually. So they had a massive decrease from kind of January onwards. And then for the last 3 months, they've been back 18-19% year on year, but fairly flat. So feels like we're entering a bit of kind of stability for the market, which is really great. And those prices coming down is fantastic news for the consumer because, you know, ultimately those used EVs are now way more cheaper than they ever were and way more accessible to a lot more consumers. So, you know, you've got some great deals to be had probably by consumers now in terms of accessing electric vehicles, which was not the case 12 months ago, and more choice and supply coming into the market. So, so good news from that point of view as well.
Right, Rachel, there's some really interesting stuff there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's it for today's Car Dealer Live. Join us again very soon. Bye-bye.